Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying, he gets reborn as Gyomei inside of Avatar The Last Airbender. What will Gyomei do inside of Avatar The Last Airbender with earthbending?
But still I felt the tremor of fire. 3 days passed without incident. We marched through valleys, along rivers, past villages where refugees huddled quietly behind their walls. They bowed their heads as we passed, their eyes wide when they saw me. Mothers clutched their children closer. Some whispered blessings, others whispered fear. On the fourth day, as the sun climbed high and the road wound through a narrow canyon, I pressed my palm to the ground. My beads shifted faintly. My voice was calm, deep. They wait, Fire Nation, above us, both sides. The captain stiffened. His hand tightened on his spear. His voice was sharp. How many? I lowered my head, listening to the earth. 30 more. The envoy cursed under his breath, his formality breaking. They know. They knew we marched with him. The captain barked orders. Shields up, form ranks. The soldiers moved quickly, discipline sharp. Shields lifted, forming a barrier along both sides of the road. Archers knocked arrows, their eyes scanning the cliffs. The envoy turned to me, his voice strained. If they strike, we cannot protect you and the convoy both. I inclined my head slowly. I will stand, you will hold. The air shifted, the earth trembled. Then the Fire Nation struck. Flames burst from the cliffs, fire raining down upon the convoy. Arrows followed, hissing through the air. Soldiers cried out, shields locking tight. The road filled with heat, smoke, and shouts. The first wave slid down ropes, armored lightly, fire bursting from their hands as they descended. Their officer shouted sharp commands. Kill the monk, leave none alive. The soldiers of Ba Sing Se braced, spears thrusting upward. 2 raiders fell, pierced through before their flames could reach the ground. But more landed, fire roaring wide. I stepped forward, chains snapping loose. My flail spun wide, the spiked weight striking hard into the chest of the first who landed. His body struck the ground with a crack. My axe cut through the rope of another, sending him falling with a cry. The captain roared, "Hold the line, do not break." The soldiers pressed tight, shields braced. Fire slammed against them, sparks scattering, but they held. Arrows loosed from behind the wall, striking raiders as they tried to climb down. Still more came. The cliffs above swarmed with movement. Fire arced high, bursts exploding against stone. I pressed both palms to the ground. The canyon shook. Stones surged upward, walls rising to shield the convoy. Fire crashed against them, scattering harmless sparks. The soldiers steadied, their fear turning to resolve. They shouted as one, Ba Sing Se. The battle grew thick. Raiders struck from both sides, flames bursting in wide arcs. Soldiers countered with spears, shields, and arrows, their formation unbroken. But the enemy pressed harder, their fury sharp, their goal clear. One officer leapt down before me, his armor scorched black, fire bursting from both hands. His voice roared, "You are mine." His flames crashed forward. I raised stone before me, blocking the blast. My flail snapped wide, striking his arm. The armor dented, his fire cut short. He staggered. My axe followed, cutting across his chest plate. He fell hard, his cry silenced. The soldiers saw and roared louder. Their line surged forward, spears striking with renewed strength. But the Fire Nation did not falter. More ropes dropped. More raiders came. The canyon filled with smoke and fire. The envoy shouted from his mount, his voice sharp. "We cannot stay pinned. Break them." The captain turned to me, his voice strained but steady. "Cut them down, or we will all burn." I pressed my palms together once. My voice was calm, deliberate. "I will." I pressed both hands to the ground. The canyon trembled violently. The cliffs themselves split, stone cracking, boulders tumbling down. Raiders screamed as the ground shook beneath them. Several fell, crushed beneath rock. Others staggered, their lines broken. I surged forward, chains spinning wide. My flail struck one soldier hard, his body thrown against stone. My axe cut through the spear of another, breaking him where he stood. Step by step, I carved into their ranks. The soldiers of Ba Sing Se followed, their formation tight, their voices sharp. Arrows loosed, spears thrust. The line pushed forward, scattering raiders. The fire dimmed, the raiders faltered. Their officer shouted for retreat, his voice breaking. Fall back, fall back. Those who could still climb scrambled back up the cliffs. Those too slow were cut down. Their flames flickered, their shouts fading into silence. The canyon grew quiet, but for the groans of the wounded and the crackle of smoke. The soldiers lowered their shields slowly. Their captain's chest heaved, his armor scorched, but his eyes burned with pride. His voice was rough but firm. We held. They did not break us. The envoy dismounted, his face pale but stern. His voice was low, formal once more. If not for him, we would all be ash. The soldiers' eyes turned toward me. Some held awe, some held unease, but none spoke against what they had seen. I lowered my flail slowly, beads heavy in my hands. My voice was deep calm. You endured. You will endure again. The captain bowed his head slightly. And with you beside us, perhaps Ba Sing Se will see more than whispers. The envoy said nothing. He turned sharply, his face unreadable, and gave the order to march. By dusk, the convoy had left the canyon. Fires burned low behind us, black smoke rising against the horizon. The soldiers moved with weariness, but also with pride. They had faced fire and stood. Their discipline held. Their king's banner still flew. I walked in silence, beads shifting faintly, chain heavy across my shoulder. The Fire Nation had learned of my march. They had tried to end it. They would try again. But I endured. I would endure again. Chapter 34, Shadows of Ba Sing Se. The march stretched on for many days. After the ambush in the canyon, the soldiers of Ba Sing Se walked with sharper eyes, their hands always near their weapons. The Fire Nation had struck once. They expected more. But no second attack came. Instead, villages passed in silence, filled with weary refugees who stared with wide eyes at the column of green-clad soldiers and at me among them. Children whispered my name when they thought their parents could not hear. Men lowered their heads in respect or fear. The road pressed on. At last, after nearly 2 weeks of marching, the horizon filled with walls. They rose high, higher than any I had touched before. Stones stretching into the clouds, broad as mountains, unbroken in any direction. Ba Sing Se, the city said to never have fallen. The soldiers straightened their lines as the gates drew near. The envoy rode at their front, his face stern, his voice clipped. March steady, show discipline. Ba Sing Se watches. The gates loomed, guarded by lines of soldiers in green and bronze, their armor polished, their stances sharp. The captain raised his hand. The column slowed. The envoy stepped forward, dismounting to present his seal. Env, Lin, returning from Omashu, orders executed. The monk comes with us to the king. The gate captain saluted, his voice firm. Proceed, but wait here, orders have changed. At those words the envoy stiffened, his face darkened. What do you mean? The gate captain did not answer. Instead, shadows moved. Cloaked figures stepped forward, silent, their movements precise. Stones shifted faintly beneath their feet. Their eyes glinted sharp under their wide hats. The soldiers of Ba Sing Se bristled, their spears lifting slightly. The envoy's voice snapped sharp. What is this? The lead figure stepped forward. His robe was finer, his bearing calm. His voice was low, controlled, steady. The orders come from within. He is not to see the Earth King. He is to come with us. The soldiers whispered. The captain frowned. The Dai Li. The envoy's jaw tightened. My orders are sealed from the king himself. He is to be delivered to the palace. The man inclined his head slightly, his voice calm but unyielding. The king's will is safeguarded through us. He comes with the Dai Li now. The air thickened with tension. The soldiers of Ba Sing Se tightened their grip on their spears. The Dai Li stood unmoving, their hands loose at their sides, but stones shifted faintly near their feet. The envoy turned to me, his voice sharp, urgent. "Say the word. We will bring you to the king as ordered." The Dai Li leader's eyes shifted to me as well, cold and unreadable. "Or you come now, and there is no conflict." I stepped forward, beads heavy against my chest, chain rattling faintly at my side. My voice was calm, deep, deliberate. "I will not see the king hidden in shadows. If you block his light, then you stand before me." The soldiers of Ba Sing Se stiffened, their eyes wide. The envoy's jaw clenched, but he stood taller, defiance in his bearing. The Dai Li, however, did not flinch. The leader inclined his head faintly, his tone still even. "Very well. You will come, and you will understand why." He gestured once. The Dai Li moved as one, surrounding me with practiced precision. Their stone gloves flickered faintly at their hands. Their eyes stayed cold. The envoy protested, his voice harsh. "This is against the king's orders." The leader's voice cut him off, smooth but sharp. "It is the king's safety." The soldiers of Ba Sing Se shifted uneasily, but lowered their spears at the envoy's sharp signal. His jaw was tight, his face pale with frustration. He spoke low, bitter. "I cannot stop them here. The city itself belongs to them." The Dai Li leader turned again to me. "Come." I bowed my head slightly, beads pressed between my palms. My voice was slow, certain. "I will walk, but I will not bow." They led me not to the palace, but downward. Past the gates, through the inner walls, through streets filled with people who hushed as the Dai Li passed. Markets stilled. Refugees shrank back. Mothers pulled their children close. All eyes followed me, wide with fear and awe. Deeper still past the markets, past the houses, into the lower ring. The shadows grew heavier. Stone halls replaced streets. The air cooled. Torches flickered against damp walls. At last the passage opened into a broad chamber. Torches lit its edges. In the center, a raised dais of stone. Upon it stood a single man. He was not tall nor broad. His robe was simple though fine. His hair was combed, his bearing calm. But his eyes were sharp, cold, calculating. Long Feng, Grand Secretariat of Ba Sing Se, head of the Dai Li. He inclined his head slightly, his voice smooth, controlled. "So, you are the monk who shatters Fire Nation commanders, who breaks supply lines, who bends stone as though it were clay." I stepped forward slowly, beads shifting against my chest, chain heavy at my side. My voice was deep calm. "I am Gyomei, I stand." Long Feng studied me, his gaze unblinking. "You are spoken of across the Earth Kingdom. Omashu praises you. The Fire Nation fears you. But here," his tone sharpened faintly, "here you are a problem." The Dai Li circled quietly at the edges of the chamber, their eyes locked on me. My voice did not change. "I bring no harm to Ba Sing Se. I stand against fire." Long Feng's lips curved faintly, but his eyes remained cold. "Perhaps, but men like you draw fire. Omashu suffers because of you. The Fire Nation will turn their eye here if you remain." He stepped closer, his voice dropping low. "And Ba Sing Se cannot risk that." The chamber grew still. The Dai Li shifted faintly, stone clicking under their gloves. Long Feng's voice grew steady again. "You have two paths. You bend to our will and we place you where your strength serves the city, quietly, controlled, or," his tone sharpened, "you resist and you vanish." My beads pressed between my palms. My voice was calm, steady, deliberate. "I do not bow to shadows. If you seek to move me, then move me yourself." Long Feng's gaze did not waver. For a moment, silence held the chamber. Then he inclined his head faintly. His voice was smooth, but harder now. "Very well. Show me, then. Show me why Omashu dares to laugh in the face of Ba Sing Se." He gestured once. The Dai Li moved as one. Stones surged from the ground, hands reaching to seize my arms, chains rising to bind. I pressed my palm to the floor. The earth trembled, the chains shattering. My flail snapped wide, striking one of the agents hard, his body thrown against the wall. The others closed in, their stone gloves striking fast, precise. I raised walls, blocking their blows, but their strikes came sharp and unyielding. They moved like shadows, quick, coordinated. My axe cut through a stone chain, my flail struck another, breaking their line. The chamber shook with the clash of stone against stone, the echo of iron against rock. The Dai Li pressed harder, their movements sharp, silent, but they faltered. My strength broke their formations, my strikes shattered their constructs. One by one, they fell back. Long Feng watched in silence, his eyes sharp, his face calm. At last, the chamber grew still again. The Dai Li stood at the edges, their breath heavy, their eyes wary. None moved closer. Long Feng inclined his head faintly, his voice smooth. So, the stories are not lies. His eyes narrowed slightly. Very well, you will not be broken by force. Then we will use you another way. His tone sharpened. You will serve Ba Sing Si not as the king's weapon, but as mine. Quietly. You will fight where I place you, or the people you protect will suffer. I lowered my head slightly, beads pressed between my palms. My voice was calm, deep. You threaten shadows. I stand in stone. I do not move. Long Feng's lips curved faintly, though his eyes stayed cold. We shall see. The Dai Li closed in again, not to strike, but to surround. The chamber darkened with their presence. Chapter 35. Murmurs in the lower ring. The Dai Li did not bring me to the palace. They moved me through the stone corridors beneath Ba Sing Si, leading not upward, but outward. At last, when we emerged, it was not into marble halls, but into the dirt and narrow streets of the lower ring. The air was heavy here. Smoke from countless cookfires drifted through the alleys. Children's cries echoed faintly. Walls leaned, cracked and patched with clay. Refugees filled the streets, their faces thin, their eyes weary. They carried baskets with little inside, their clothing worn, their steps slow. The Dai Li walked ahead of me, their cloaks brushing the dirt, their eyes watchful. People shrank back when they saw them, doors shut quickly, conversations cut short, silence followed in their wake. But when the people saw me among them, they did not turn away. They stopped, they stared. Whispers rose, soft at first, then louder. It's him. The monk from Omashu. He crushed their commander. He saved villages. A mother clutched her child closer, whispering low, he fights the Fire Nation. A boy, no older than 10, stepped out from an alley, his eyes wide. He carried no shoes, his clothes torn, but his voice rang clear. You're the one who broke their wagons. You're the one they say can't be burned. The Dai Li turned sharply, their eyes narrowing. One raised his hand in warning, stone shifting faintly underfoot, but the boy did not flinch. He only stared at me, waiting. I lowered my head slightly, my beads pressed between my palms. My voice carried deep calm. I stand where fire falls. The boy's eyes lit. He turned and shouted down the alley. It's him, it's him. Others came quickly, men with hollow cheeks, women carrying infants, children clinging to their mothers, dozens, then more, filling the street. Their voices rose in murmurs. He's here. The one who fights them. They cannot kill him. The Dai Li stiffened. Their leader barked in a low, sharp tone. Disperse, return to your homes. But the people did not move. They pressed closer, their eyes on me. Some reached out faintly, as if touching me would carry strength. Others fell to their knees, whispering thanks, prayers, pleas. The Dai Li leader's voice grew harder. Now, back to your homes. Still the crowd did not move. Their whispers swelled into chants, uneven but strong. Stone, stone, stone. The Dai Li shifted, tension sharp in the air. Their gloves glinted faintly in the light. I stepped forward, chain rattling softly, beads heavy in my hand. My voice carried slow and certain, cutting through the noise. Hold, no hand rises here. They are not enemy. The people grew quiet, their eyes fixed on me. The Dai Li froze, their leader's jaw tightening. For a moment, silence stretched. Then a woman's voice broke it, trembling but strong. My village burned. My husband died. We ran here with nothing. If you can fight them, don't stop. A man shouted after her. They say Ba Sing Se is safe, but it is. We need someone who will fight. The murmurs swelled again, stronger this time. The Dai Li's leader stepped close, his voice low, sharp, meant only for me. You will silence them, or we will. I turned my head slightly, beads pressed between my palms. My voice was steady, deliberate. I will not silence hope. His jaw clenched, his hand twitched, but he did not give the signal. Instead, he gestured sharply, and the Dai Li began to move again, forcing the crowd back with the weight of their presence. People stepped aside, but their whispers followed. He will stand. He will fight. He's not afraid. The further we walked, the more followed. Not all dared step into the open, but they watched from doorways, from windows, from alleys. Word spread faster than the Dai Li could contain it. By the time we reached the next square, the crowd had doubled. They did not cheer loudly, they did not raise banners, but their eyes shone brighter, their whispers carried heavier. And the Dai Li could not stop them. When night fell, they led me into a stone chamber beneath the lower ring. It was not a prison, but not free either. A room with walls too thick to break without bringing the city down, guarded at every door. Long Feng entered quietly after the guards had left. His steps were measured, his expression calm, his eyes sharp. He studied me for a long time before speaking. You should have silenced them. I lowered my head slightly. My voice was calm, deep. They are broken. They need stone to stand on. His lips curved faintly, but his eyes stayed cold. You think yourself that stone, then understand, too much hope shatters order. Ba Sing Se survives because the people do not know war, because they believe they are safe. If you tell them otherwise, you unravel the city. I pressed my beads together, the sound soft in the chamber. My voice was slow, certain. I will not spread lies. I will not silence truth. Long Feng's eyes narrowed. Then I will silence it for you. He turned sharply, his robe trailing. His voice was clipped as he left. The Dai Li will handle this. The door closed. The chamber grew still. But outside, the Dai Li could not contain the whispers. By the next morning, refugees spoke my name in markets and streets. They told each other of the monk who shattered fire with stone, who broke armies, who walked unburned through flames. Children ran through alleys, shouting my name in play. Mothers whispered it to their children at night. Men spoke it quietly in taverns. The Dai Li tried to still them. They warned, they threatened, but silence would not return. The people had seen me, and they would not forget. Chapter 36, Stone Beneath Stone. The whispers had spread too far for Long Feng to ignore. I heard them even within the chamber the Dai Li had placed me in. Their voices carried faintly through the walls, not shouts, but murmurs. Mothers speaking to children. Men whispering names. Feet gathering outside before being driven away. Long Feng returned on the third day. His robe brushed against the stone floor, his steps measured. His eyes held no change, sharp and cold. He studied me in silence before speaking. Your presence has become disruptive. I did not move. My beads pressed softly between my palms. My voice was calm, deep. I did nothing but walk. His lips curved faintly. Sometimes walking is enough to cause unrest. You will be moved. The Dai Li stepped forward at his gesture. Their gloves gleamed faintly in the torchlight. I stood slowly, chain heavy across my shoulder. My voice was steady, deliberate. I will walk, but I will not bow. Long Feng inclined his head slightly. His voice remained smooth. You will learn. In the dark, there is no need for bowing. He turned sharply and left. The Dai Li closed in around me. They led me through the lower streets again, but this time no crowds followed. The Dai Li had cleared the roads before us. The people were shut inside their homes, doors barred, windows closed. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of boots striking stone. We turned not toward the gates of the upper ring, but toward tunnels hidden beneath warehouses and abandoned halls. The air grew colder as we descended, the torches burning low against damp walls. The tunnels twisted deeper and deeper, until even the sounds of the city above could no longer be felt. At last the passage opened into a cavern carved from the stone itself. Rows of cells lined the walls, their doors thick, their bars strong. The air smelled of damp earth and iron. Prisoners sat in silence behind the bars, their faces hollow, their eyes lifeless. Some looked up when we passed, but most did not. The Dai Li stopped before a cell larger than the rest. Its walls were thick, its bars reinforced, its floor bare. The leader gestured. His voice was calm, clipped. "Here." I stepped inside. The door closed behind me. The sound of stone grinding into place echoed through the chamber. The Dai Li did not leave. They stood outside the bars, silent and watchful. Their presence was heavy, unyielding. I lowered myself slowly to the floor, my beads pressed together in my hands. My voice was calm, deep. "You may place me in stone, but you will not move me." They did not answer. They stood in silence, their eyes sharp, their hands loose at their sides. Time passed slowly in the deep stone. There was no light but the faint glow of torches, no sound but the shifting of guards and the drip of water. The Dai Li rotated their posts with precise regularity. Food was brought at measured times, rice, water, sometimes broth. They spoke no words when they delivered it. Other prisoners stirred faintly in their cells, their whispers low. Some wept, some muttered in confusion, most sat in silence. But even here, whispers found me. "You're the one they fear. The monk. They say you fight fire." I said little. When I did, my voice was steady, calm. "I stand." Their eyes lit faintly in the dimness. Whispers spread again, even in this deep place. On the 5th day, Long Feng returned. He entered the cavern quietly, his robe brushing against the floor, his steps measured. The Dai Li straightened as he passed. He stopped before my cell, his hands clasped behind his back. He studied me in silence for a long moment before speaking. "They whisper even here. You cannot be silenced, not by walls, not by shadows." I lowered my head slightly. My beads pressed softly together. My voice was calm, deliberate. "I will not be broken by stone." His lips curved faintly, though his eyes remained cold. "Perhaps not, but stone can bury, stone can smother. The people will forget in time." I raised my head slightly. My voice was steady. "They will not forget truth." Long Feng's gaze sharpened. "Truth is what we shape it to be, and in Ba Sing Si, truth is mine." He turned sharply, his robe trailing. His voice was clipped as he left. "Let him remain. He will fade." The Dai Li closed ranks again, silent as shadows. But I did not fade. Days passed. Whispers grew. Refugees in the lower ring began to gather near the hidden entrances of the tunnels. They left food, they left candles, they left stones carved with my name. The Dai Li cleared them away each morning, but each night more appeared. Inside the prison, prisoners spoke my name in low voices. They whispered of fire broken, of hope unburned. Their voices carried through the cells, soft but steady. The Dai Li grew harsher. They threatened, they silenced, but the whispers did not stop. Even in the deep stone, hope spread. One night the cavern shook faintly, not from me, not from the prisoners, from above. The Dai Li stiffened. One pressed his hand to the wall, his eyes narrowed. He whispered to the leader. Gathering above, refugees, hundreds. The leader's face hardened. His voice was low. Long Feng will not allow this. He turned sharply. Seal the gates. No one enters. The Dai Li moved quickly, shadows flowing into the tunnels. I pressed my palm softly to the ground. The tremors spoke to me. Dozens more, feet stamping, voices raised. The refugees gathered above, demanding. My voice was calm, deep, steady. They will not stop. The guard at the bars looked at me sharply, but said nothing. Chapter 37. The cries beneath the city. The tremors above did not fade. Through the stone I felt them grow stronger, more feet, heavier steps, voices rising together. The sound of hundreds packed into the lower ring streets. They did not scatter as the Dai Li wished. They gathered. The guards at my cell shifted uneasily. They spoke low, their words clipped. They do not leave. They press the gates. They call his name. The leader frowned, his jaw tight. Hold position. Orders will come. But the orders did not come quickly enough. The stone above groaned. The gates that sealed the tunnel trembled. Shouts rang out, muffled but sharp. Then the sound of wood breaking, stone shifting, and voices flooding downward. The guards stiffened. One pressed his hand to the wall. His eyes widened. They are inside. The leader's face hardened. Form ranks. Do not let them reach him. The Dai Li spread out, their steps slow, precise, their hands low, stone stirring faintly at their touch. The prisoners in their cells stirred, their voices rising in low whispers. They come. The people come. They will not stop. I pressed my beads between my palms, the sound soft in the heavy air. My voice carried deep calm. They walk for truth. Do not raise your hand against them. The leader's eyes flicked toward me, sharp, cold. He said nothing. The sound of the crowd swelled quickly. Feet pounded against stone. Torches flared in the tunnel. Then they came, dozens at first, then more, pouring into the cavern. Men, women, children. Refugees with worn clothes, with hunger in their faces, but with fire in their eyes. They filled the space, pressing against the edges of the chamber, their voices rising. Free him. Release the monk. He stands against the Fire Nation. The Dai Li raised their hands sharply, stone walls rising in warning. Their leader's voice cracked across the noise, low but commanding. Disperse. Return to your homes, now. But the people did not move. They pressed closer, their chants growing louder. Free him, free him. Mothers clutched their children, their eyes hard with desperation. Old men leaned on staffs but stood unshaken. Youth shouted loudest, their fists raised. The Dai Li's gloves gleamed faintly. The air thickened. One of the younger men in the crowd stepped forward, his voice strong. You cannot silence us. He fights for us while you hide in shadows. The leader's eyes narrowed. His hand flicked. Stone surged upward, striking the ground at the youth's feet. The crack echoed through the cavern. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back. But then more surged forward. He is ours. He is hope. You will not take him. The Dai Li braced, their stance sharp, their movements tense. I rose slowly to my feet. The beads pressed heavy in my hands. My voice carried deep, steady, cutting through the noise. Hold, do not strike. These hands are not enemy. The crowd quieted slightly, their eyes turning to me. The Dai Li froze, their leader glaring, his jaw tight. I stepped forward, chain rattling softly, the bars before me unmoved. My voice did not change. You walk for truth. Do not fall to anger. If you raise your hand, they will answer with stone, and blood will fall. The people shifted uneasily. Their voices dimmed, but their eyes stayed firm. The leader's voice cut through, cold, sharp. They will leave, or they will learn. His hand rose. The Dai Li tensed. Stone shifted faintly at their feet. The crowd braced, fear mixing with fury. Mothers pulled children back. Men raised fists. Youth shouted louder. The chamber trembled with tension. I pressed my palm to the ground. The stone carried all of it, fear, anger, desperation. My voice rose, deep, certain. If you strike me first. I will not allow it. The words held. The crowd stilled. The Dai Li froze, their leader's hand hovering in the air. His eyes locked on me, cold, calculating. For a long moment, no one moved. Then his hand lowered slowly. His voice was low, clipped. Clear this chamber. The Dai Li moved forward, not with strikes, but with their weight. Their presence pushed, their silence pressed. The people hesitated, but slowly began to step back. Murmurs filled the air, softer but steady. He lives. He speaks for us. They fear him. One by one, they withdrew, their voices fading up the tunnel. The torches dimmed. The cavern grew quiet again. The Dai Li closed ranks. The leader's eyes lingered on me, sharp and cold. His voice was low, meant only for me. You do not command here, but you make them listen. That will not be allowed. He turned sharply. His cloak brushed the ground. His voice carried to his men. Double the guard. No one enters. No one leaves. They moved quickly, sealing the tunnel behind them with thick stone. The cavern fell silent once more. But the silence was not empty. The prisoners whispered in the dark. Their voices carried through the cells. They came. They walked for him. They will come again. I lowered myself slowly back to the floor. My beads pressed softly together. My voice was calm, deep, steady. They will not stop. The guards outside my cell said nothing, but their hands trembled faintly as they held their stance. Chapter 38. The Pressure of Stone. The day after the refugees entered the tunnels, the silence of the prison was not as deep as before. Even from where I sat, the earth carried their presence above, hundreds of feet pressing against the ground, not marching, not running, but staying. The weight of their gathering was steady, unbroken. The guards noticed it too. One of them pressed his palm lightly to the wall. His eyes flickered, uneasy. They are still there. Another frowned. Crowds that large do not stay, they disperse. The leader shook his head. His voice was clipped, cold. Not this time, they will wait. Whispers spread through the other cells. Prisoners stirred, their voices low, carrying in the silence. They do not leave. They wait for him. They will not stop. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice was calm, deep, steady. They walk with patience. Stone does not move quickly, but it endures. The guards shifted uneasily, but none spoke further. By the second day, the crowd had grown. I felt it in the tremors through the earth, more footsteps, the press of bodies shoulder to shoulder, the shifting weight of people too many for the space above. The voices carried faintly through cracks in the stone, not loud, but constant. They did not chant, they did not shout, they simply stayed. Mothers with children, men with tools, youth who had fled burned villages, all standing. The guards grew tense. The leader spoke low to his men. They gather food, they pass water, they prepare to stay longer. One of the younger guards asked, unease in his voice, if they will not leave, what happens? The leader's jaw tightened. Long Feng will decide. On the third day, Long Feng came. He entered the cavern with no haste, his robe brushing the stone floor. The Dai Li straightened as he passed, their faces expressionless. He stopped before my cell, his eyes sharp, his voice smooth. You have become a burden. I lifted my head slightly, beads pressing together. My voice was calm, deliberate. I did not call them, they came. His lips curved faintly, though his eyes stayed cold. They came because you exist, because they believe you will stand for them. But hope is dangerous. Hope breaks order, and order is the only thing that keeps Ba Sing Se alive. He gestured toward the ceiling, where faint echoes of the crowd still carried through. His voice sharpened. They do not disperse. They grow. Already there are hundreds. Soon there will be more. If they do not leave, we will clear them, by force. The prisoners stirred, their voices rising in low murmurs of fear and anger. I pressed my palm lightly to the floor. The tremors spoke of the people above, unmoving, unyielding. My voice was slow, steady. If you strike them, blood will spill, and the city will break. Long Feng's eyes narrowed. His voice dropped lower. Then tell them to leave. The chamber stilled. All eyes turned to me. The prisoners waited. The guards held their breath. I bowed my head slightly, my beads heavy in my hands. My voice carried deep. They will not listen to shadows, only to truth. Bring them to me, I will speak. Long Feng's gaze held on me, cold and calculating. Then slowly he shook his head. No, that would only strengthen you. He turned sharply, his robe trailing as he left. His voice was clipped sharp. If they remain by tomorrow, we clear them. The Dai Li followed him out. The prisoners murmured louder now. Some whispered in fear, others whispered with anger. They will kill them. They will not stop. They must be protected. I lowered myself back to the floor. My voice was calm, deep, steady. They endure. I will endure with them. That night, the crowd did not disperse. I felt their weight through the earth. Hundreds of bodies pressed close together, lying on the ground, refusing to leave. Their voices were softer, but still present. Families whispering to each other, mothers singing to children, men speaking quietly in defiance. The Dai Li above patrolled, but they did not move the crowd. Not yet. The guards at my cell shifted uneasily, unable to ignore the presence above. One muttered low, "It feels as if the city itself is watching." The leader glared at him, but said nothing. On the fourth day, the pressure grew heavier. The tremors told me the crowd had swelled further. More footsteps pressed against the ground. More voices carried through faint cracks in the stone. They had brought food, water, even blankets. They were no longer only waiting, they were settling. The leader of the guards received word from above. His face tightened as he repeated it. They have blocked the street. No carts can pass. Merchants complain. The unrest spreads. Another guard frowned. What will Long Feng do? The leader's jaw hardened, what he always does. That evening, Long Feng returned. He stood before my cell, his eyes colder than before. His voice was quiet, clipped. They have doubled, thousands now. They do not leave. They spread through the lower ring, whispering your name. The king himself has heard of this unrest. You endanger all. I raised my head slightly, beads heavy in my palms. My voice was calm, steady. I endanger nothing. I walk. They choose to stand. Long Feng's lips thinned. His voice grew harsher, though still controlled. Then tomorrow, the Dai Li will disperse them, permanently. You will watch the hope you created burn away. The prisoners stirred again, their voices loud in the cavern. Fear, anger, desperation filled their whispers. I pressed my palm to the ground. The tremors carried the truth, thousands waiting above, their bodies pressed close, their voices rising together. My voice was slow, deliberate. They will not move. If you strike, the city will burn. Long Feng stared at me for a long moment. His eyes were sharp, calculating. Then he turned sharply, his robe trailing as he left. His voice was clipped, cold. We will see. The Dai Li followed him out. The cavern grew quiet again, but the voices of the prisoners carried louder now. They will kill them. They will not stop. They need him. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice was calm, deep, steady. They endure. I will endure with them. Chapter 39. When stone gives way. The weight above me grew heavier each day. The crowd of refugees had not dispersed. Instead, they swelled. Thousands now stood above the sealed tunnels. Their voices pressed through the earth. Not chants, not shouts, but the steady murmur of people who refused to leave. They carried their children. They brought food and blankets. They made fires at night. The Dai Li whispered among themselves. Their patrols grew thicker, their faces tighter. The prisoners in the cells stirred constantly, whispering through the bars. They are still there. They do not move. They wait. On the fifth day, the tremors in the stone changed. No longer only the weight of bodies standing. Now there was movement, sharp and deliberate, feet pressing downward, stone grinding, wood splintering. The guards stiffened. One pressed his hand to the wall, his eyes widened. They dig, they are coming. The leader's face hardened. His voice was clipped. Hold your posts. But the ground itself betrayed his command. The ceiling above the far tunnel cracked, dust falling in faint streams. Shouts echoed from above. Then the wall split. A flood of people poured through, carrying torches, their faces set with determination. The Dai Li braced, their stone gloves forming with a sharp crack. Their leader barked, "Form ranks, stop them here." The refugees did not halt. They surged forward, men with tools, women with baskets, children pressed behind. Their voices rose together. "Free him! Release the monk!" The Dai Li struck first. Stone walls shot upward, blocking the path. Hands of rock reached out to seize those in front. The refugees pushed back, striking with picks and shovels, tearing at the stone with bare hands. Some fell, but others climbed over them, pressing harder. The cavern filled with the clash of stone against flesh, the shouts of men, the cries of women, the roar of defiance. The prisoners shouted through their bars, their voices rising above the chaos. "They come. They will not stop." I rose to my feet, my beads pressed heavy in my palms. My voice carried deep, calm, steady. "Enough, no more blood." The guards at my cell flinched. One turned sharply. "Stay where you are." But the stone itself did not listen. I pressed my palm to the ground. The earth trembled, shuddering beneath all present. The walls the Dai Li had raised cracked. The hands of stone shattered. The barriers split and fell away. The refugees surged through. They crashed into the cavern, pressing past the Dai Li lines. The agents fought, but their discipline faltered against sheer numbers. Men grappled with them. Women struck with tools. Children screamed. In the chaos, one of the refugees reached my cell. A young man with dirt-streaked cheeks and a torn tunic. His hands bled from clawing through stone. His voice was hoarse but strong. "We came for you." He seized the bars, pulling with all his strength. Others joined him. Dozens of hands gripped the iron. They pulled together, grunting, shouting. The bars shook but did not break. I stepped forward. My chain rattled softly. My voice was slow, deliberate. "Stand back." They moved aside. I pressed both hands to the ground. The stone beneath the cell shuddered, the bars cracking. With one motion, the wall split. The doorway opened. The refugees gasped. Some fell to their knees. Others pressed forward, reaching out as if to touch me. Their voices rose in awe and relief. "He's free. He walks. He stands with us." The Dai Li leader shouted, his voice harsh. "Stop him, seal the cavern." Agents surged forward, stone gloves raised. But I stepped into their path. My flail snapped wide, the spiked weight striking hard into the ground before them. The stone split, a wall rising between the refugees and the agents. My voice carried deep, calm, unshaken. "Stand down. These are not enemy." The agents froze, their eyes flicking to me, then to the crowd pressing behind. Their stance wavered. The leader's jaw tightened. His voice was sharp, cold. "You will regret this." He signaled sharply. The Dai Li withdrew in disciplined steps, melting back into the shadows of the tunnels. Their eyes lingered on me, sharp, unreadable. The refugees pressed closer. Mothers clutched their children. Men raised their fists. Youth shouted. "He is free. They cannot hold him. He will fight for us." I bowed my head slightly, my beads pressing softly together. My voice was calm, deliberate, steady. "I walk with you, but we do not spill blood against stone. We stand together, but we do not strike our own." The crowd stilled, their voices dimming. Their eyes stayed fixed on me, wide and shining, but their fists lowered. Mothers held their children tighter. Men nodded slowly. One of the older women stepped forward, her face lined with years of hardship, her voice trembling but strong. "If you stand, then we will follow." The crowd murmured in agreement. Their voices swelled again, but not in anger, in resolve. By the time we left the cavern, the tunnels were filled with people. Refugees pressed against every wall, carrying torches, carrying tools, carrying nothing but their will. The Dai Li had fallen back, their shadows watching from the edges. The crowd surged upward, spilling into the lower ring streets. Thousands filled the roads now, their voices rising together. He is free. He walks. He cannot be broken. The city shook with their cries. From the shadows, the Dai Li watched, their faces unreadable. Messengers ran quickly through the streets, carrying word to higher levels. I walked slowly at the center of the crowd, beads heavy in my hands, chain across my shoulder. My voice was calm, deep, deliberate. We will not break. We will not strike our own. We will endure. The people echoed my words in murmurs and nods. They pressed closer, but they did not riot. They stood together, filling the lower ring with their presence. The city could no longer ignore them. That night, from the tremors in the earth, I felt the movement of many feet above soldiers, not Dai Li. Ba Sing Se's military had stirred. The unrest had grown too large for Long Feng to hide. The whispers reached even the highest walls now, Chapter 40, among the refugees. When the Dai Li retreated and the stone walls fell silent, the people did not scatter. They remained pressed close in the tunnels, their torches burning low, their eyes fixed on me. The air was heavy with dust and smoke, but their voices carried with clarity. He is free. They cannot hold him. He walks with us. The young man who had pulled first at my bars stepped forward again, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. His voice trembled, but not with fear. Come with us. Stay with us. They will not dare take you again if you are among the people. The crowd murmured their agreement. Mothers clutched their children. Old men leaned forward, nodding. Youth shouted their approval. I pressed my beads softly together, the sound steady in the cavern. My voice was calm, deep, deliberate. I will walk with you. I will not return to shadows. The chamber swelled with voices. Relief, pride, resolve. The refugees surged upward, leading me through the tunnels, back to the surface. The air grew fresher as we climbed. The tremors in the earth told me how many still waited above. Thousands. Their weight pressed heavy against the streets. When we emerged, the lower ring erupted in cries. Men raised their fists. Women wept. Children shouted my name. The Dai Li lingered in the distance, their eyes sharp, their presence heavy, but they did not strike. They could not against so many. I walked slowly at the center of the crowd. My beads pressed together. My chain rattled faintly at my side. My voice carried calm, steady, unbroken. We will stand. We will endure. No hand will rise against our own. The people echoed me in murmurs and nods. Their cries softened, but their unity grew firmer. They brought me to the heart of their camps in the lower ring. Rows of worn tents stretched across the dirt streets. Fires burned low in pits. Children huddled together under blankets. Families sat in small circles, sharing what little food they had. The refugees cleared a space for me near the largest fire. They pressed close around it, their faces lit by its glow. Their voices carried quietly. Stay with us. Protect us. They will not touch you here. I lowered myself slowly to the ground, my beads pressed in my hands. My voice was calm, deep. I will remain. I will walk with you. The people exhaled, their shoulders loosening, their fear easing. Mothers smiled faintly. Fathers nodded with pride. Children whispered my name with awe. That night the camp did not sleep easily, but it did not sleep in fear. Fires burned later. Voices carried longer, and the Dai Li did not enter. The next morning, the camp stirred with unusual strength. Men went to gather food together. Women shared water among families. Children played loudly without being hushed. The presence of so many had turned fear into something steadier. When I walked through the camp, the people stepped aside, not with distance but with respect. They greeted me quietly. They offered food, though they had little. They asked for nothing but my presence. The Dai Li lingered at the edges of the lower ring, their cloaks dark, their eyes sharp. They did not strike. They watched. The people noticed. A woman with a child at her hip whispered low, her voice tense. They wait. They will come when they think we are weak. I bowed my head slightly. My voice was calm, steady. Then we will not be weak. We will not strike first, but we will not bow. Her eyes softened. She nodded, holding her child closer. As the days passed, the camp changed. The people began to organize around me. Men volunteered to guard the outer tents at night. Women shared food evenly across families. Youth carried water and firewood together. The Dai Li came closer once, their agents stepping into the edge of the camp. The guards among the refugees raised their tools and stood firm. Mothers pulled their children close, but did not flee. I stepped forward, chain heavy at my side. My voice was calm, deep. No hand will rise. You will not strike here. The agents studied me in silence. Their eyes lingered on the people behind me, standing unbroken. Then they turned and melted back into the shadows. The people exhaled together. Their whispers spread again. They fear him. They will not take him. We are safe. On the fifth night, when the fires burned low, a group of elders approached me. Their faces were lined with age and hardship, but their eyes were steady. One of them spoke, his voice low but firm. The people trust you, they look to you. But the Dai Li will not stop. They will wait for a moment to strike. If you are with us, you must lead us. The others nodded. Their voices carried the same weight. We cannot scatter. We must stand together. I press my beads softly together, my voice deep, deliberate. I will stand. I will not bow. We will endure as one, but we will not strike against our own. The elders bowed their heads in agreement. Their shoulders eased. The next day, word spread through the camp. The monk would remain. The people would not scatter. The lower ring would not bow. The Dai Li tightened their patrols. They sealed more tunnels. They whispered threats to merchants and citizens who came too close. But still the people stayed. Their presence could not be erased. By the end of the week, the lower ring had changed. Where once there was silence and fear, now there was strength. Families stood together. Fires burned brighter. Voices carried louder. And in the heart of it, I sat among them, my beads pressed in my hands. My voice carried calm, steady, deliberate. We will not move. We will endure. Chapter 41. The generals arrive. The days in the lower ring passed heavily. The Dai Li had not struck again, but their shadows lingered around every street. They watched the camp without stepping inside. They whispered threats to merchants, cut off supplies where they could, and tried to squeeze the people into silence. But the people did not scatter. They stayed. The camp had grown into more than scattered tents. Families built crude walls of wood and stone around their fires. Men stood guard at night, not with spears but with staffs and tools. Youth ran messages through the streets. Women carried water in lines that stretched the width of the camp. It was no longer only survival. It was endurance. On the seventh day after my release, the tremors of the earth changed again. I felt them before anyone else heard them. Heavy steps, disciplined rhythm, armor shifting against armor, lines of soldiers marching. The refugees noticed soon after. Men straightened. Women hushed their children. The guards at the edges of the camp gripped their staffs tighter. Then they came. Through the streets of the lower ring, green-clad soldiers advanced in perfect formation. Their armor was polished bronze. Their boots struck the stone in unison. At their front rode generals on ostrich horses, their bearing proud, their expressions set with severity. The Dai Li did not lead them. The Dai Li lingered behind, cloaks shadowed, eyes sharp, but they did not march in front. The soldiers halted at the edge of the refugee camp. The generals dismounted, their steps firm, their eyes surveying the crowd. The people shifted uneasily, but they did not flee. Their eyes followed the soldiers, then turned toward me. I stood slowly, beads heavy in my hands, chain coiled across my shoulder. My voice carried deep, steady, unbroken. They come. We will not bow. We will not strike. We will endure. The murmurs of the people steadied. They stood firm, their fear easing into resolve. The generals stepped forward. Their armor clinked softly, their eyes fixed on me. The eldest among them spoke first, his voice stern, formal. You are the monk they whisper of, the one who fought in Omashu, the one the Fire Nation fears. I bowed my head slightly. My voice was calm, deliberate. I am Gyomei, I stand. The general's jaw tightened. His voice carried command. You are a soldier, whether you claim it or not. Ba Sing Se has no use for you here, sitting among beggars and rebels. You will come with us. You will serve the Earth King's army. You will fight for Ba Sing Se. The camp stirred uneasily. The people murmured, their voices sharp with distrust. He is not theirs. They will take him from us. They will bury him again. The generals heard the whispers. Their eyes narrowed. Their hands tightened on the hilts of their weapons. I pressed my beads together softly, the sound steady in the air. My voice carried calm, deep. I will not abandon those who freed me. I will not return to shadows. If I fight with truth, not with chains. The general's eyes hardened, his voice sharpened. Then you defy the king's army. I lifted my head slightly. My voice was steady, deliberate. I defy no one. I walk, I endure. But I will not bow to shadows, whether they wear cloaks or armor. The crowd stirred louder now. Refugees raised their fists. Mothers shouted. Youth called out. He stands with us. They will not take him. We will not bow. The soldiers shifted uneasily, their formation steady, but their eyes flicking toward the crowd. The generals exchanged glances, their jaws tight. The eldest spoke again, his tone harder. You cannot protect these people from what comes. The Fire Nation grows stronger every day. Ba Sing Se needs weapons, not martyrs. You will come, or we will take you. The Dai Li stepped forward now, their leader's voice low, cutting. He is already under our watch. He is not yours to claim. The generals turned sharply, their voices sharp. You let him escape. You let this chaos spread. You will not speak of control when you have already failed. The Dai Li's eyes narrowed. The air thickened. The two forces faced each other across the edge of the camp, soldiers against shadows. The people pressed closer to me, their voices rising. Their fear had become defiance. They will not take him. He is ours. He stands with us. The generals turned back to me, their voices cutting through the noise. Choose, the king's army or these streets. You cannot have both. I pressed my beads softly together. The sound echoed in the tense air. My voice carried deep, calm, deliberate. I walk with those who freed me. If the king wishes to see me, I will walk. But I will not leave them. I will not bow. The generals' faces hardened. They stood silent for a long moment, their eyes locked on me. Then the eldest gave a sharp command. Hold your line. Withdraw. The soldiers obeyed instantly. Their formation shifted, their boots striking in perfect rhythm as they turned. They did not bow to the Dai Li nor to the refugees. They left in order, their generals riding ahead. The Dai Li lingered a moment longer, their eyes sharp, their silence heavy. Then they too slipped back into the shadows. The camp exhaled as one. The people surged closer, their voices swelling with relief and resolve. They will not take him. He stands with us. We endure. I lowered myself slowly back to the ground. My beads pressed heavy in my palms. My voice was calm, deep, steady. We endure. We will not break. The fires of the camp burned brighter that night. The people did not whisper in fear. They spoke in strength. And the city above could no longer pretend not to hear. Chapter 42. Summoned to the throne. The fires of the refugee camp burned low when the tremors came again. I felt them through the stone before any voice cried out. Heavier steps than refugees, but not the tight rhythm of soldiers. Wagons rolled, ostrich horses paced, metal clinked faintly against polished stone. The guards of the camp gripped their staffs tighter. Mothers pulled their children close. Murmurs spread quickly. They come again. Soldiers. No more than that. Then they arrived. From the dark streets of the lower ring, a procession advanced. Not only soldiers, though there were many. Not only generals, though several marched in front. Among them walked figures in finer robes, their posture stiff, their expressions formal. At the center rode a tall ostrich horse, bearing a young man dressed in gold and green, his crown small, his face sheltered. The people whispered quickly, their voices sharp with awe and disbelief. The Earth King. The king himself. He has come here. The generals dismounted, their armor gleaming in the torchlight. They saluted stiffly, their movements sharp. The Dai Li appeared in silence, slipping from the shadows at the edges of the crowd, their eyes sharp and watchful. The Earth King raised his hand uncertainly, his voice soft but carrying. Bring me to him. The generals led him forward. The people parted slowly, uneasily. Mothers held their children tighter. Men lowered their heads but did not step back. All eyes turned to me. I rose slowly to my feet. My beads pressed heavy in my hands, my chain coiled across my shoulder. My voice carried deep, calm, deliberate. I am Gyomei, I stand. The Earth King studied me with wide eyes. His voice trembled faintly, though he tried to keep it steady. You are the monk they speak of, the one who fights the Fire Nation, the one the people follow. I bowed my head slightly. My voice was calm, steady. I walk, I endure. They walk beside me. The generals stepped forward, their voices sharp, firm. Your Majesty, this man is a weapon. He must be brought under command. He must serve the throne. The Fire Nation will fall if he fights with us. The Dai Li's leader moved sharply, his voice low, cutting. He is already under our watch. He is dangerous. His presence here breeds unrest. He must be contained, or the city will fracture. The generals glared at the Dai Li. The Dai Li glared back. The Earth King shifted uneasily on his mount, his eyes flicking between them. The refugees pressed closer behind me, their voices rising. He is not theirs. He will not be taken. He stands with us. The camp swelled with sound. The generals stiffened, their hands near their weapons. The Dai Li shifted, stones stirring faintly under their feet. The Earth King raised his hand again, his voice higher now, sharper. Enough, he will come with me, to the palace. I will speak with him myself. The generals bowed their heads slightly. Yes, your Majesty. The Dai Li hesitated, their leader's jaw tightening. But they did not defy him openly. They bowed stiffly, their silence heavy. The people murmured in unease. Some cried out, No, they will take him again. Do not let them. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice carried deep, calm, steady. I will walk, I will not bow. If the king calls, I will walk. But I do not leave you, I endure with you. The refugees quieted. Their fear did not vanish, but their resolve steadied. They nodded, their eyes fixed on me, their voices softer. He walks. He will return. He does not bow. The generals moved to escort me. The Dai Li closed in silently. The Earth King turned his mount, leading the procession back through the streets. I walked at the center, my beads heavy in my hands, the weight of the people's eyes pressing from behind. The procession wound upward, through the walls that divided the city. The lower ring faded behind us. The middle ring passed with its markets and walls. At last, we reached the inner ring, where polished stone streets stretched wide, and lamps burned bright against the night. The people here whispered as we passed, not with desperation, but with curiosity and unease. Servants pulled their children aside. Merchants bowed quickly, their eyes darting to the Dai Li shadows. At last the palace gates loomed. Soldiers opened them in silence. The procession entered the great halls. The palace was vast. its walls of white stone, its ceilings high and echoing. Tapestries hung long, showing dragons and mountains. Guards lined the halls, their armor gleaming in the torchlight. The Earth King dismounted. The generals and Dai Li followed close. He turned to me, his voice softer now, uncertain. "Come, we will speak." They led me into the throne room. The chamber stretched wide, its pillars tall, its walls hung with banners of green and gold. At the far end stood the throne, raised upon steps. The Earth King climbed them slowly and sat, his crown glinting faintly. The general stood to his right. The Dai Li gathered to his left. The hall was silent, but for the echo of our steps. The Earth King studied me, his face uncertain, his voice soft. "They say you cannot be burned, that you shatter the Fire Nation's armies, that you freed Omashu. Tell me, what do you seek here in Ba Sing Sea?" I lowered my head slightly, my beads pressed between my palms. My voice carried deep, calm, deliberate. "I seek nothing, I walk, I endure. If fire falls, I stand. That is all." The generals stepped forward quickly, their voices sharp. "Your Majesty with him at the front, we can drive the Fire Nation back. He must lead armies. He must strike for Ba Sing Sea." The Dai Li's leader countered, his voice low, cutting. "He is a threat. He already stirs unrest in the lower ring. The people whisper his name more than they whisper yours. If he fights openly, they will follow him, not you. He must be contained." The Earth King shifted uneasily on his throne, his eyes flicking between them. His hands tightened on the arms of his chair. His voice was soft, uncertain. I do not want the city divided." The generals pressed harder. "Then command him to fight for you." The Dai Li pressed harder still. "Command him to disappear." The hall grew tense. The generals and the Dai Li stared at one another, their conflict silent but sharp. The Earth King's face paled, his voice trembled. I must think." I pressed my beads softly together. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. "I will not bow to shadows. I will not abandon truth. I walk, I endure. If the king calls me, I will walk. But I will not break those who stand beside me." The general stiffened. The Dai Li glared. The Earth King lowered his eyes. The hall fell into silence, heavy and unbroken. Chapter 43. The Walk from the Throne. The throne room was silent, but for the faint sound of banners shifting in the still air. The Earth King sat stiffly on the throne, his crown glinting faintly under the torchlight. His hands gripped the carved arms of his seat, his posture uncertain. The generals stood to his right, their armor gleaming, their faces sharp with focus. The Dai Li stood to his left, their cloaks shadowed, their eyes unreadable. The hall was heavy with tension. Everyone waited for my answer. I pressed my beads softly together in my palms. The sound was steady, grounding. My voice was calm, deep, deliberate. "I will not bow. I will not serve as a weapon chained. I walk, I endure. If fire falls, I will stand. That is enough." The Earth King blinked, his face confused. His voice trembled slightly. But Ba Sing Sea needs every weapon we can find. The Fire Nation." The generals cut in, their voices sharp, commanding. "Your Majesty, this is unacceptable. He cannot be left in the streets, stirring rebellion. He must fight for you, or he must be bound." The Dai Li's leader stepped forward, his voice low, cutting. "He belongs in the shadows, not before the throne. This farce must end before it spreads further." The generals glared at him. The Dai Li glared back. The Earth King shifted uneasily in his seat, his eyes darting between them. I remained still. My voice carried calm, steady, unbroken. "I bow to no shadow. I bow to no command that strips truth. If the king calls me to stand against fire, I will walk. But I will not leave those who freed me. I endure with them." The general stiffened. One stepped forward, his voice sharp with anger. "You dare refuse the throne." I turned my head slightly toward him. My voice was calm, deliberate. "I refuse chains, not the throne." The Earth King lowered his eyes, his fingers tightening on the arms of his seat. His voice was soft, uncertain. Then you may go, for now. The hall stirred at his words. The generals whispered harshly to each other. The Dai Li's silence thickened, their eyes cold. I bowed my head slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. My beads pressed softly together. My voice was calm, deep, steady. I walk. I turned from the throne. The hall remained silent, the banners still, the torches steady. My chain rattled faintly against the stone floor as I walked. The guards at the doors stepped aside, their eyes wide. I left the throne room without chains. The procession through the palace halls was heavy with silence. The soldiers did not bar my path. The Dai Li did not strike. The generals did not speak. Only the sound of my steps carried through the stone. When I reached the gates, the refugees were already gathered outside. They had marched upward from the lower ring, filling the streets near the palace walls. Their voices had carried ahead of them. Now they waited, pressed together, their eyes searching. When they saw me step through the gates, their voices erupted. He walks free. They could not take him. He stands with us. The crowd surged forward, but the soldiers held them back at the gates. The Dai Li lingered nearby, their eyes sharp. But the people did not break. They stood firm, their voices loud. I raised one hand slightly, my beads pressed heavy in my palm. My voice carried deep, calm, steady. I walk, I return. I endure with you. The crowd's cries softened, but their strength grew. They pressed close together, not in panic, but in unity. Mothers held their children higher. Men raised their fists. Youth shouted with pride. The soldiers shifted uneasily, their formation tight, but their eyes flicking between the people and me. The Dai Li stepped back into the shadows, their silence heavy. I walked slowly down the steps of the palace. The people parted, forming a path, their eyes fixed on me. They did not touch, but they pressed close, their presence strong. I walked through them, my beads pressed softly together, my chain heavy at my side. Their voices rose as I passed. He endures. He will not bow. He is ours. The return to the lower ring was long, but the streets were filled. Refugees and citizens alike followed, their numbers swelling with each step. The Dai Li shadows kept their distance. The soldiers did not pursue. By the time we reached the camp, the crowd had grown into thousands. Fires burned bright in the night. The air was thick with voices, not in fear, but in resolve. I lowered myself to the ground near the largest fire. My beads pressed in my hands. My voice carried deep, calm, deliberate. We endure. We will not bow. We will not break. The people echoed in murmurs. Their voices carried through the camp, through the streets, through the lower ring itself. The throne had not chained me. The shadows had not silenced me. The people knew. That night, the camp did not sleep. Fires burned high. Voices carried long. Families huddled together, not in fear, but in strength. The Dai Li lingered at the edges, their eyes watching, but they did not enter. The generals had not claimed me. The throne had not bound me. The people had seen. The truth had spread. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice was calm, deep, steady. We endure, chapter 44, the night of stone and fire. The night was still. The refugee camp lay quiet under the faint glow of its fires. Children slept close to their mothers. Men and women rested in circles around the embers, their bodies weary, but their voices hushed with steadiness. The guards among the refugees held their crude staffs, pacing slowly along the outer edge of the camp. I sat near the largest fire, my beads pressed in my hands, the chain coiled across my lap. The people had begun to sleep without fear, but their breath still carried tension. They knew the Dai Li would not stay silent forever. The tremors in the earth told me the truth before any voice cried out. They were coming. Dozens moving as one. The rhythm was not that of common soldiers. It was precise, calculated, sharp. The Dai Li. I pressed my beads together softly, the sound clear in the still air. My voice carried low, calm, deep. They come, wake. The guards stirred at once. Men rose, clutching their staffs. Women shook children awake, whispering quickly. Fires were fed, their flames brightening. The camp came alive, not in panic, but in readiness. Then the shadows broke. From every side of the camp the Dai Li emerged, their cloaks dark, their hands already pressed to the earth. Stone walls surged upward, cutting paths through the tents. Children screamed, women pulled them close, men raised their tools in defiance. The Dai Li moved with silence, their gloves of rock snapping into place. Their leader's voice cut cold through the night. Scatter or be buried. The refugees did not scatter. They pressed together, their voices rising. We will not bow. We will not break. The Dai Li advanced. I rose slowly to my feet. My beads pressed heavy in my palms. My chain rattled as it fell against the earth. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. No more shadows, no more chains. We endure. The agent struck. Stone hands shot forward, grasping at those in front. A wall surged to pen the camp. The crowd cried out. I stepped forward, planting my chain into the ground. The earth trembled. The stone wall cracked and fell away. The hands of rock shattered. The refugees gasped. The Dai Li faltered for the first time. I walked into their path. My flail snapped wide, the spiked weight striking the ground before them. The earth split with the blow, cutting a line between the agents and the people. My voice carried deep, steady. You will not take them. The Dai Li hesitated. Their eyes flicked to the crowd behind me, pressed together, their voices rising louder. He stands. We endure. We will not bow. The agents surged again, this time in greater numbers. Stone walls rose from every side. Hands of rock lashed toward me. I moved through them, each step deliberate, each strike precise. My chain shattered the walls. My beads pressed steady in my palm as I advanced. The refugees pressed closer, not with weapons but with their presence. They shouted together, their voices filling the night. Mothers raised their children high, showing they would not run. Men struck the ground with their staffs. Youth screamed in defiance. The Dai Li faltered again. Their formation broke slightly. They had come to crush silence into the camp, but they found only unbroken voices. I stood at the front, beads in my hands, my voice calm, steady, unyielding. We do not strike first. We do not scatter. We endure. The agents froze. Their leader's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked toward the shadows, where Long Feng himself now appeared. His robe trailed against the earth, his expression sharp, his voice low and cutting. You turn beggars into rebels. You turn whispers into fire. Do you think the throne will allow this? I turned my head slightly toward him. My voice was calm, deliberate. I bow to no shadow. I break no truth. They stand. I endure with them. The people roared in answer. Their voices filled the camp, carried through the lower ring. He endures. He walks with us. We will not bow. Long Feng's eyes narrowed. His voice was sharp with restrained fury. You will regret this. He turned sharply, signaling with his hand. The Dai Li stepped back in unison, retreating into the shadows from which they came. The stone walls crumbled behind them. The camp was left standing. The people exhaled as one. Relief surged, but it was not relief alone. It was pride, resolve, strength. They pressed together around me, their voices swelling into chants. Not wild, not chaotic, but steady. He endures. He walks. He stands with us. From that night, the camp changed. No longer only a place of survival, it became a movement. The refugees organized themselves with new purpose. Men formed watch lines in shifts, patrolling with staffs and tools. Women built larger fires, keeping them burning through the night. Youth carried water and messages through the lower ring. When food came, it was shared evenly, but openly recorded. Those who gathered it received more, and the people agreed. None questioned it. None turned away. At the heart of it I remained. My beads pressed in my hands, my chain across my lap. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We endure, we do not bow. The people repeated it daily, their voices carrying through the streets. The Dai Li watched from the shadows, their eyes sharp, but they did not strike again. Not so openly, not against thousands now bound together. The generals heard of it, the palace heard of it, and the city above could not remain blind. By the end of the week, the lower ring had changed. The refugee camp was no longer only tents. It had become the heart of a movement. Families from other streets joined. Merchants whispered of protection among them. Citizens of the lower ring began to drift closer, drawn by the strength that held steady in the fires. The people no longer whispered in fear. They spoke openly, their words steady. He walks with us. We endure. We will not bow. And above, in the palace, the throne could not ignore it. Chapter 45. Against the walls. The camp had grown into more than tents. By the second week, it had become a city within the lower ring. Families built rough barricades of wood and stone around its borders. Watch lines patrolled at night. Fires burned high, not only for warmth, but as signals, markers of unity, visible even from the walls of the middle ring. The Dai Li lingered in the distance. They watched, but they did not strike, not after their failure, not against thousands. The people no longer whispered. They spoke openly. Their voices carried through the streets. We endure. We will not bow. He walks with us. It was on the morning of the 10th day that the generals returned. The tremors in the earth told me first, a disciplined march, heavier than before. Not a raid, but an envoy. The soldiers' steps carried with them weapons, wagons, crates. The people stirred uneasily as the procession entered the camp's edge. Men tightened their grips on staffs. Mothers pulled children close. Youth whispered in alarm. The soldiers stopped in formation. The generals stepped forward, their armor gleaming, their faces proud. Their leader's voice was sharp, firm, carrying across the camp. Gyomei, the throne sees what you have built here. The Earth Kingdom does not wish to crush you nor scatter these people. You have strength. We offer you more. Weapons, supplies, armor. Lead these men and women as soldiers and fight the Fire Nation under the King's banner. Behind them, wagons were opened. Crates of spears, shields, and bows were revealed. The soldiers stood tall, waiting. The camp murmured. Some stared at the weapons with wide eyes. Others shook their heads in anger. They want to use us. They will chain him again. They promise, but they lie. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice carried deep, calm, deliberate. I do not bow, I do not break. I walk, I endure. But I do not fight at the command of those who chain their own people. The general's face hardened. His voice rose sharp. You refuse the throne's will. You spit on its protection. You would abandon this city while fire burns its walls. I turned my head slightly, my voice slow, steady. You abandon your own. These people were cast aside, buried in shadows. You offered no bread, no water, no home, only chains. Now you come with weapons not to feed them, but to bleed them. I will not lead them as your tools. The camp roared in answer. Men raised their staffs. Women shouted. Youth stamped their feet. We are not tools. We will not bow. He stands with us. The soldiers stiffened, their formation holding, but unease flickered across their faces. The generals exchanged sharp glances. The leader's jaw tightened, his voice cut with authority. Then you defy Ba Sing Se. I raised my beads, pressing them softly together. My voice was calm, deep. I defy shadows. I defy chains. If you strike us, we will not scatter. We will not bow. We endure. The camp echoed with the words. Their voices swelled until the soldiers could not ignore them. The generals glared, but they gave no command to strike. They turned sharply, their cloaks snapping behind them, their voices carried to their men. Withdraw. The soldiers obeyed. The wagons closed. The procession turned and left the camp in silence. The people erupted in cries, their voices steady and loud. They will not take him. We endure. We will not bow. I lowered myself to the ground near the largest fire. My beads pressed in my hands. My voice carried deep, steady. They offered chains. We refused. We endure. The people repeated it, their voices carrying through the camp, through the streets, through the lower ring. By the next night, the camp had changed again. The people no longer only watched for the Dai Li. They began to prepare openly against the Earth Kingdom itself. Men trained together in circles, their staffs striking in rhythm. Women sharpened tools into weapons. Youth carried messages across the lower ring, rallying families from farther streets. The camp was no longer only defense, it was resolve. The elders came to me in a group, their faces lined with years but their eyes steady. One of them spoke, his voice low but clear. They will come again, with weapons, with soldiers. We must be ready. If you lead, we will follow. The others nodded. Their voices carried the same strength. We will not bow to their banners. We will not fight their wars, but we will fight if they strike us. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice was calm, deep, deliberate. I do not command, I walk. But if you stand, I stand. If you endure, I endure. If they strike, I will shield you. The elders bowed their heads, their shoulders easing. They returned to the camp with steadiness. Word spread quickly. The people no longer whispered only of endurance. They spoke of strength. They began to build not just barricades, but walls. They gathered stones, wood, and iron scraps. They raised them at the camp's edges. They dug trenches. They formed watch lines that no longer carried only staffs, but sharpened blades. The Dai Li watched from the shadows, their eyes sharp. The generals heard. The throne could not ignore. And in the heart of it, I sat among them, beads pressed in my hands, chain across my lap. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We endure. We will not bow. We will not scatter. The people answered with pride. Their voices carried through the night. And Ba Sing Se trembled. Chapter 46, the first march. The camp had changed again. Where once there were scattered tents, now there were barricades of stone and wood. Where once guards carried staffs, now they carried sharpened tools and some even crude blades. Where once voices whispered, now they spoke openly, steadily, with resolve. The people had endured, and now they moved. At first it began with a small group of youths. They slipped from the camp at night, carrying nothing but hunger and anger. By dawn, they returned with crates of grain taken from a merchant's wagon on the lower ring road. They were cheered, but also scolded. The elders argued, voices low but sharp. They risk the camp. They bring us food. They will draw the Dai Li. They show strength. The whispers spread quickly. By the next night, more went. They returned with sacks of rice, with baskets of fruit, with bolts of cloth. Some bore bruises, but none were lost. By the third raid, the elders came to me. Their faces were heavy with worry, but their eyes steady. One of them spoke, his voice low but firm. They will not stop. Already, families beyond the camp whisper of them. They say the king feeds no one, but the monks' people do. If this grows without hand, it will break. Another added quickly, you must choose, either forbid them or lead them. The camp was silent as they waited for my answer. Men, women, children, all turned toward me. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice carried deep, calm, deliberate. They endure, I endure with them. I will walk at their front. If they march, I march. If they stand, I stand. We do not scatter, we do not bow. The silence broke into voices. The people cried out, not in fear, but in pride. He leads. He walks with us. We will not bow. The next night, we marched. Hundreds moved through the streets of the lower ring. Men carried staffs, spears, crude blades. Women carried baskets for food and cloth. Youth ran ahead as scouts. The fires of the camp burned behind us, marking our strength. I walked at the front, my beads pressed in my hands, my chain heavy at my side. The people followed in lines, not wild, but steady. The first target was a supply convoy bound for the middle ring. Wagons rolled heavily down the street, escorted by a small line of soldiers. Their armor gleamed in the torchlight. Their ostrich horses clattered against the stone. When they saw us, they halted. Their commander shouted, "Disperse! This convoy is property of the Earth Kingdom." The people did not scatter. They pressed closer, their voices rising. "We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us." The soldiers lowered their spears. The refugees tightened their grip on staffs and tools. I stepped forward, beads pressed in my palms. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. "No blood, no chains. Leave the wagons, walk away." The commander's face hardened. His voice was sharp. "Do you threaten the king's army?" I raised my head slightly. My voice was steady, deliberate. "I threaten no one, I walk, but I endure with them. Leave or be broken." The soldiers hesitated. They saw the numbers, hundreds pressing behind me, their voices rising louder, their staffs striking the ground in rhythm. The commander gritted his teeth. With a sharp gesture, he ordered his men to withdraw. The soldiers pulled back, their eyes filled with anger but also unease. The wagons were left behind. The people surged forward. They seized sacks of rice, baskets of vegetables, bolts of cloth. Their voices filled the street. "We endure. We will not bow. He walks with us." The raids continued. Each night more families joined. Supply wagons were seized. Soldiers were driven back, not with slaughter, but with numbers and resolve. The camps swelled with food, with cloth, with tools. Merchants whispered in fear, but also in awe. Citizens of the lower ring drifted closer, drawn by the strength they had never seen before. The Dai Li watched. They lingered in the shadows, their eyes sharp, their hands pressed to stone. But they did not strike, not yet, not against thousands. The generals heard, their voices carried through the palace. "He undermines the throne. He builds an army in the streets. If he is not crushed, he will rise beyond our reach." Long Feng seethed. His words were clipped cold. "If the throne will not chain him, then I will bury him." On the 15th night, the movement marched farther than before. This time, not only through the lower ring, this time toward the middle ring gate itself. The people pressed in lines, their torches burning. Their voices filled the streets, steady and unbroken. "We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us." At the gate, soldiers waited in formation. Their armor gleamed in the moonlight, their spears lowered as one. Their commander's voice carried sharp through the air. "This gate does not open to beggars. Turn back." The people pressed closer. They did not strike. They did not scatter. Their voices rose louder, echoing against the walls. "We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us." I stepped forward, beads pressed in my hands. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. "No chains, no shadows. Open the gate, or we break it." The soldiers hesitated. Their commander's face paled. He looked to the numbers pressing behind me, the torches burning, the staff striking the ground in rhythm. He turned sharply, signaling retreat. The soldiers withdrew. The gate stood. The people roared. That night, the lower ring knew it had strength, not only to endure, but to move. By dawn, the movement had become more than refugees. It had become an army. Not soldiers of the throne, not shadows of the Dai Li, not chained, not broken. An army of endurance. At its head I walked, my beads pressed in my hands, my chain across my shoulder, my voice calm, deep, steady. "We endure, we will not bow, we will not scatter." The people answered with pride. Their voices filled the city. And Ba Sing Se trembled. Chapter 47, The Clash of Walls. The morning came with silence, heavier than before. The camp stirred as usual, fires were stoked, water was carried. Children ate small pieces of bread with their mothers. But the ground beneath my feet told me the truth. The tremors were heavier. Not a patrol, not a convoy. Hundreds of boots striking together, wagons creaking under supplies, the disciplined rhythm of an army. The refugees sensed it too. Men stopped mid-step, their staff still in their hands. Women pulled children close, whispering quickly. Youth who had been laughing the night before stood stiff now, their eyes fixed on me. The elders approached, their voices low but steady. They come with numbers, greater than before. They mean to crush us. I pressed my beads softly together, the sound carrying through the camp. My voice was calm, deep, deliberate. They come with walls of stone. We endure. We will not scatter. We will not bow. The people murmured in response, their voices low but steady. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. By midday, the battalion arrived. The tremors grew until even the children felt them through the earth. The ground shook with the rhythm of marching. The sound of armor clinking filled the air. When they appeared at the edge of the camp, the people gasped. Hundreds of soldiers in bronze and green armor. Their lines were tight, their spears raised, their shields broad. Ostrich horses clattered against the stone streets. Behind them rolled heavy wagons, their wheels creaking under supplies. At their head rode 3 generals, their armor heavier, their helmets adorned with green crests. Their faces were hard, their voices sharp. Gyomei, the eldest shouted, his voice carrying across the camp. You have built rebellion. You have stolen from the king. You gather beggars and call them soldiers. Today this ends. The soldiers raised their spears as one. Their shields struck the ground with force, the sound echoing through the streets. The camp stirred but did not scatter. Men gripped their staffs and crude blades. Women held children tighter but stood firm. Youth clutched stones in their hands. Their voices rose in defiance. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I stepped forward, my beads pressed in my hands, my chain rattling softly at my side. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We are no rebels, we are no shadows. We are those you abandoned. We will not scatter. We will not bow. If you strike, you will break against us. The generals' faces hardened. Their leader raised his hand. Form ranks. The soldiers moved in unison, shields locked together, spears lowered. The battalion advanced. The people pressed closer around me, their fear sharp, but their resolve stronger. Their voices carried over the sound of marching. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The soldiers struck first. The front line advanced into the camp, their shields raised, their spears thrusting. The refugees braced. Men with staffs blocked blows. Women pulled children back. Youth hurled stones from behind. I stepped into their path. My chain snapped wide, the spiked weight striking the ground before them. The earth split with the blow, the stone shattering under their feet. The front line stumbled. My voice carried deep, steady. No chains, no shadows, we endure. The soldiers pressed harder. Stone walls surged upward as earthbenders in their ranks joined the advance. Barricades of wood and stone cracked under the assault. Refugees cried out as tents were trampled. But the people did not scatter. They pressed together. They struck with staffs. They hurled stones. They shouted with voices that carried over the clash. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The battle filled the streets. Soldiers pushed forward with shields. Refugees struck back with numbers. The air was filled with cries, with the clash of wood against steel, with the crack of stone splitting under force. I moved through it slowly, each step deliberate, each strike heavy. My chain shattered shields. My beads pressed steady in my palm. I broke walls of stone with my hands. I stood at the front, shielding the people. The generals watched from their mounts, their faces sharp, their voices shouting commands. Hold the line, push them back. But the line did not hold. The people did not break. Their voices carried stronger with each moment. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The soldiers faltered, their advance slowed, their shields cracked, their spears splintered. The battalion that had marched to crush now struggled to hold its ground. By evening, the fighting had spread across half the lower ring. The soldiers could not drive us out. Their lines were broken by the sheer weight of the people pressing together. At last, the generals gave the order, "Withdraw." The soldiers pulled back in lines, retreating through the streets. Their shields raised, their formation tight, but their pace fast. The generals rode at their head, their faces grim. The people roared in victory. Their voices filled the air, carrying through the lower ring, through the walls, to the middle ring beyond. They will not bow. We endure. He stands with us. I lowered myself slowly to the ground near the largest fire. My beads pressed heavy in my hands. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. They came with chains. They broke. We endure. The people pressed closer around me. Mothers smiled through tears. Men raised their staffs high. Youth shouted with pride. The battalion had failed. The walls of Ba Sing Se had trembled, and the people had endured. Chapter 48. The division approaches. The night after the battalion's retreat was filled with restless voices. The people had celebrated, their chants filling the streets, but as the fires dimmed and children were put to rest, the weight of what had come pressed over the camp. They had turned back hundreds of soldiers. They had endured, but the earth beneath my feet told me truth as clear as any voice. The generals would not leave it there. I sat near the largest fire, beads pressed in my hands, the chain coiled at my side. Men sharpened staffs into spears nearby. Women boiled what little rice we had taken from wagons. Youth walked in pairs, carrying water and watching the edges of the camp. Their faces were tired, but their voices steady. They will come again. With more. We will not bow. The elders came to me, their steps slow but firm. One spoke, his voice carrying weight. They have gone to the king. They will return with more than hundreds. They will return with thousands. Another added quickly, if they send a division, it will not be like the last fight. We will face walls of shields, rows of spears, bending from every side. The people nearby fell silent, listening. Their fear hung heavy, but no one moved to scatter. I pressed my beads together softly. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. They will come with more. We will not bow, we will not scatter, we endure. The murmurs grew stronger, steadier. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. By dawn, the news reached the camp. Scouts returned from the edge of the middle ring, their faces pale, their breaths quick. They march with thousands, one youth said, his voice shaking. An entire division, rows upon rows, wagons full of spears and shields, benders at every rank. The camp stirred at once. Mothers gathered children close. Men gripped their staffs tighter. Youth whispered among themselves, glancing toward me. I rose slowly to my feet, the beads heavy in my hands. My voice carried calm, deliberate. They come with a division. We endure. We will not bow. The people answered in unison, their voices louder than before. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. The day passed with preparation. Barricades of wood and stone were strengthened, trenches were dug deeper, crude weapons were sharpened. Scouts were sent in pairs to watch the streets. Fires were fed, not only for warmth, but as signals. Children carried water in buckets. Women sewed cloth into strips for bandages. Elders spoke in low voices, guiding the youth in where to stand, how to move together. When the sun began to fall, the earth trembled. This time, the sound was heavier, deeper, louder. Thousands of boots striking stone, hundreds of wheels creaking under wagons, ostrich horses clattering in formation. The people pressed close together at the camp's edge. Their fear was sharp, but their resolve stronger. Their voices rose in steady rhythm. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. The division appeared as the sun set. Row upon row of soldiers in bronze and green armor stretched across the street, their shields gleaming in the torchlight. Banners of the Earth Kingdom snapped above their heads. Their lines were tight, their spears lowered, their ranks unbroken. At their front rode the generals, armored heavier than before. Their faces were hard, their voices sharp. Gyomei, the eldest shouted. This ends tonight. You defy the throne. You steal from the king. You raise rebellion in the lower ring. By order of Ba Sing Se, we march to end you. The division struck their shields as one, the sound echoing like thunder through the streets. The people did not scatter. They pressed closer, their voices louder, steadier, unbroken. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. I stepped forward, beads pressed in my hands, chain rattling at my side. My voice carried calm, deep, deliberate. We are no rebels, we are no shadows. We are those you cast aside. We will not scatter, we will not bow. If you strike, you will break. The generals raised their hands, their voices cut through the air. Advance. The division moved as one, shields locked, spears lowered. Earthbenders struck the ground, stone walls rising in their path. The clash began. The front lines pressed into the barricades. Shields struck wood. Spears thrust forward. The walls of stone crashed against the camp's defenses. The people met them with staffs and stones, with spears and cries. Men braced the barricades with their shoulders. Women pulled children back, but hurled stones with steady hands. Youth darted through the lines, carrying messages, bringing water. I stepped into the front. My chain snapped wide, the spiked weight crashing against shields. The soldiers staggered, their line bending under the strike. My beads pressed steady in my palm. My voice carried deep calm. We endure. The soldiers pressed harder. Earthbenders surged forward, raising walls, hurling stone. The barricades cracked, splintered, broke. The refugees fell back step by step, their fear sharp, their cries loud. But they did not scatter. They pressed closer together. Their voices rose louder. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. I planted my chain into the ground. The earth trembled. The wall before me cracked and shattered. The soldiers behind it stumbled, their formation breaking. The people surged forward, striking with staffs, hurling stones, shouting with voices that filled the night. The division reeled but did not falter. They reformed quickly, their shields locking again, their spears thrusting as one. The generals shouted, their voices sharp with command. Hold the line, drive them back. The clash raged through the streets. The lower ring shook with the sound of shields and spears, of wood and stone, of cries and chants. Hours passed. The division pressed again and again, their numbers greater, their training sharper. But the people did not scatter. They broke ranks, but they reformed. They fell, but they rose again. Their voices never ceased. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. By midnight, the streets were covered in splintered wood, shattered stone, broken spears. Fires burned at the camp's edge. The people stood bruised and bloodied, but they stood. The division had not broken them. The generals glared from their mounts, their faces grim, their voices sharp. Withdraw. The soldiers obeyed, their shields raised, their formation tight, their pace quick. The wagons rolled back toward the middle ring. The division retreated. The people roared in victory. Their voices carried through the lower ring, through the walls, through the city above. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. I lowered myself slowly to the ground, my beads pressed in my hands, my chain across my lap. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. They came with a division. They broke. We endure. The people pressed closer. Mothers wept but smiled. Men raised their staffs. Youth shouted with pride. The division had failed. The lower ring still stood. Chapter 49. The Army of the Walls. The days after the division's retreat passed with an uneasy calm. The people celebrated, their chants carrying through the lower ring, but beneath the pride was a quiet weight. They knew the Earth Kingdom had not shown all its strength. The elders met often in the firelit circles. Their voices were low, their words steady but heavy. They cannot allow us to stand. They will bring more. If they march with the full army, we cannot match their number. Others shook their heads, their eyes sharp. We will not bow, we will not scatter. If they come with tens of thousands, we endure still. I listened in silence, my beads pressed in my hands. When their words slowed, I spoke, my voice calm, deep, deliberate. They will come with more. We do not bow, we do not scatter, we endure. The people echoed it back, their voices filling the camp. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. On the fourth morning the scouts returned. Their breaths were quick, their faces pale. One of them spoke, his voice trembling. The army marches, not a battalion, not a division. The army of Ba Sing Se itself, tens of thousands. They cover the road like a river of bronze. The camp fell silent. Mothers pulled children close. Men gripped their staffs harder. Youth looked to one another with sharp eyes. The elders spoke quickly, their voices heavy. If the army marches, they mean to end this movement. They will bury us beneath numbers. I pressed my beads softly together, the sound clear in the tense air. My voice carried, calm, deliberate. They come with the army of the walls. We endure, we do not scatter. The murmurs rose, steadier now. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. By dusk, the ground trembled with the march of thousands. The sound rolled like thunder through the lower ring. Children clung to their mothers. Men and women pressed closer around the barricades. When they came into view, the people gasped. The Earth Kingdom's army stretched across the horizon. Rows upon rows of soldiers in green and bronze armor, their shields glinting in the torchlight, their spears raised high. Banners of Ba Sing Se snapped in the wind. Ostrich horses clattered in lines. Wagons rolled heavy with supplies. At the head rode the generals, their armor gleaming, their faces hard. Their voices carried sharp across the street. Gyomei, you have defied the throne for the last time. You raise beggars into rebellion, you steal from the king, you weaken the walls of Ba Sing Se. Tonight, the army marches to bury you. The soldiers struck their shields in unison. The sound shook the streets, echoing through the lower ring. The people pressed closer around me. Their fear was sharp, but their voices rose together, steady, unbroken. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I stepped forward, beads pressed in my hands, chain heavy at my side. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We are no rebels, we are no thieves, we are those you cast aside. You march with tens of thousands. We do not bow, we do not scatter, we endure. The generals raised their hands, their voices cut the air. Advance. The army of Ba Sing Se moved as one. The ground shook as tens of thousands advanced. Shields locked, spears lowered, ranks unbroken. Earthbenders at every line struck the ground, stone walls rising, boulders flying. The refugees braced. Men gripped their staffs and crude blades. Women pulled children behind but hurled stones with steady hands. Youth darted through the lines, carrying water, messages, food. The first clash struck the barricades. Shields slammed into wood, spears thrust forward. Stone walls surged against stone and wood. The barricades cracked, splintered, fell. Refugees cried out, but they did not scatter. They pressed closer. They struck with staffs. They shouted with voices that filled the night. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I stepped into the front. My chain snapped wide, the spiked weight crashing into shields. Soldiers staggered, lines bent. My beads pressed steady in my palm. My voice carried deep calm. We endure. The army pressed harder. Walls of stone crashed forward. Spears thrust in rows. Arrows rained down from the back lines. The refugees fell, but they rose again. They broke ranks, but they reformed. Their voices never ceased. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The streets shook with the clash. Fires burned high. Cries filled the night. Hours passed. The army's numbers weighed heavy. Refugees grew weary. Barricades fell. Streets filled with broken wood, shattered stone, splintered spears. The generals shouted from their mounts, their voices sharp. Press harder, break them. The soldiers obeyed. Their shields pressed closer. Their spears thrust faster. The walls of stone surged higher. But still the people stood. Mothers hurled stones with steady hands. Men braced against shields with staffs. Youth shouted with voices louder than fear. Their chant carried through the battle. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I planted my chain into the ground. The earth split beneath the soldiers' feet. Their lines staggered, their shields faltered. My beads pressed steady in my palm. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We endure. The people surged behind me, their staff striking in rhythm, their voices filling the streets. The army that had come to bury found itself halted in the lower ring. By midnight the clash slowed. The soldiers pulled back to reform. Their shields raised, their spears lowered, their faces strained. The generals shouted for another advance, but the line hesitated. The people did not scatter, they pressed closer. Their voices rose louder, stronger. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The generals' faces darkened, their voices cut sharp. Withdraw. The army obeyed. Their ranks turned, their shields raised, their pace steady but fast. The wagons rolled back toward the middle ring. The banners of Ba Sing Se retreated. The people roared. Their voices filled the lower ring, carried through the walls, through the city above. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I lowered myself slowly to the ground, beads pressed in my hands, chain across my lap. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. They came with the army of the walls. They broke. We endure. The people pressed closer. Mothers wept but smiled. Men raised their staffs high. Youth shouted with pride. The army of Ba Sing Se had failed. The lower ring still stood. Chapter 50. The king before the gates. The night after the army's retreat was not filled with celebration. Pride burned among the people, yes, but it was edged with weight. Twice the throne had marched. Twice it had been broken. That meant it would return stronger. The elders sat together near the largest fire. Their faces were lit by the flames, their voices low but firm. They will not accept this shame. They will bring more than soldiers. They will bring the king. If the king stands before the army, the city above will not question its purpose. The murmurs around them were heavy, but not fearful. Men tightened their grips on staffs. Women whispered to children, teaching them to chant. Youth whispered among themselves, vowing to hold the barricades. I sat with beads pressed in my palms, the chain heavy across my lap. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. They will come with the throne itself. We endure, we do not scatter. The words spread through the camp. We endure. We do not scatter. He stands with us. By morning the earth trembled heavier than before. Scouts rushed back, their faces pale, their voices urgent. The king marches with the army. His carriage rides at the front. The generals ride beside him. The banners stretch for miles. The camp stirred. Mothers gathered children. Men braced the barricades. Youth carried water and stones. But the fear did not scatter them. It sharpened them. I pressed my beads softly together. My voice carried calm, deliberate. They march with the throne. We endure. We will not bow. The people answered in rhythm. We endure. We will not bow. He stands with us. By midday, the army arrived. The sound of thousands filled the lower ring. Shields struck stone in rhythm. Spears lowered in rows. Ostrich horses clattered. Wagons groaned under supplies. Above all, banners of Ba Sing Se waved, their green cloth heavy against the wind. At the center rode a grand carriage of gold and jade. Its sides were carved with images of walls and dragons. On its seat sat the Earth King himself, a boy in fine robes, his crown set atop his head. His eyes were wide, his posture stiff. He looked at the streets with unease, but said nothing. Beside him rode the generals, their armor gleaming, their faces hard. Their voices carried sharp across the streets. Gyomei, twice you have defied us. Twice you have turned beggars into rebellion. Now the throne itself stands before you. Submit to the king or be buried beneath his army. The army struck their shields in unison. The sound rolled like thunder. The people pressed together at the barricades. Their voices rose as one, louder than fear, steady and strong. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I stepped forward, my beads pressed in my hands. My chain rattled softly against the stone. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We are no rebels. We are those you cast aside. You march with the throne. We do not bow. We do not scatter. We endure. The generals raised their hands. Their voices cut the air. Advance. The army moved as one. The clash began at once. Shields slammed into barricades, spears thrust in rows. Earthbenders struck the ground, walls rising and boulders flying. Arrows rained from the back lines. The streets shook under the weight of tens of thousands. The refugees braced. Men struck with staffs. Women hurled stones. Youth darted with water and messages. Mothers pulled children behind, but still shouted the chants. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The barricades cracked, the walls splintered, but the people pressed closer. Their voices filled the air. I stepped into the front. My chain snapped wide, the spiked weight shattering shields. Soldiers staggered, ranks bent. My beads pressed steady in my palm. My voice carried calm, deliberate. We endure. The generals shouted from their mounts. Press harder, break them. The army pressed harder. Walls of stone surged forward. Spears struck faster. The ranks pressed closer, the banners of Ba Sing Se waving above. The refugees fell back step by step, but they did not scatter. They struck together. They rose when they fell. Their voices never ceased. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. The clash raged. The earth shook. Fires burned high. Cries filled the night. Hours passed. The army's numbers weighed heavy. The refugees grew weary. Barricades fell one by one. The streets filled with broken wood, shattered stones, splintered spears. The generals looked to the carriage, their voices sharp. See, your majesty, they falter, soon they will break. The Earth King leaned forward, his eyes wide, his face pale. He said nothing, but his hands clutched the edge of his seat. The people roared louder, their voices carrying over the clash. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I planted my chain into the ground. The earth split beneath the soldiers' feet. Their lines staggered. Their shields faltered. My beads pressed steady in my palm. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. We endure. The people surged behind me, their staffs striking in rhythm, their voices shaking the air. The army slowed. Their shields held, their spears thrust, but their pace faltered. By midnight, the clash had spread across the lower ring. Fires lit the streets. Cries carried through the air. The army pressed, but it did not break the people. The generals shouted in fury, their voices sharp. Why do they not scatter? Why do they not fall? The Earth King watched in silence, his face pale, his crown heavy. His eyes darted from the people shouting with pride to the soldiers straining against them. At last, the generals raised their hands. Their voices carried across the streets. Withdraw. The army obeyed. Their ranks turned, their shields raised, their pace steady but fast. The banners of Ba Sing Se retreated. The carriage rolled back. The people roared. Their voices filled the lower ring, carried through the walls, through the city above. We endure. We do not bow. He stands with us. I lowered myself to the ground, beads pressed in my hands, chain across my lap. My voice carried calm, deep, steady. They came with the throne itself. They broke. We endure. The people pressed close. Mothers wept but smiled. Men raised their staffs high. Youth shouted with pride. The throne had marched. The people still stood.